Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring how a single, totally bizarre digital photograph spawned a massive internet mythos and eventually a record-breaking Hollywood film. We're looking at a phenomenon that literally rewrote the rules of collaborative storytelling online. It's a crazy story bridging early 2000s digital cameras, deep dive internet sleuthing, and major blockbuster cinema. So get comfortable because we're about to step way out of reality as we know it. To really grasp this, we have to travel back to a thread on the paranormal board of 4chan. This was May 2019. A user asked people to post disquieting images that just feel off. Well, another anonymous user responded with an image of a sickly yellow room, accompanied by this exact text. Let me read it to you because it sets the stage perfectly. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. I mean, just hearing that instantly plunges you into this deeply unsettling, uncanny valley vibe, doesn't it? Now, what's truly staggering here is the sheer scale of what that little blurb of text turned into. That niche internet creepypasta directly resulted in a feature film that grossed over $330 million worldwide by the summer of 2026. To put that in perspective, that is a massive, massive blockbuster. And here's the absolute kicker. It was directed by a 21-year-old YouTuber named Kane Parsons, produced by the powerhouse studio A24, and it actually became their highest-grossing film ever. No way, right? How does a spooky internet comment turn into a $330 million box office smash? Well, it all comes down to the psychology of the space itself. Section 1, the vibe, exploring liminal spaces. To understand why this took off, we've got to look at the specific psychology making this concept so universally terrifying. It isn't just about some monster in the dark. It's about the everyday spaces we usually just pass right through. So our anonymous writer used a very specific gaming term, knock clipping. If you play video games, you know knock clipping means you glitch through the boundaries of the map, literally falling through the floor into a total void. The Backrooms lore asks a terrifying question. What if reality has those exact same glitches? You could just slip through the floor of your office and end up trapped in 600 million square miles of meaningless, empty rooms. It takes the absolute safety of our physical world and completely strips it away. It leaves you isolated, disoriented, and potentially hunted by hostile entities roaming around inside. And this brilliantly illustrates why the whole concept works so well. The Backrooms is the ultimate liminal space. Liminal spaces are those transitional, connecting areas. You know, like an empty hospital corridor at 3 a.m. or maybe a deserted parking garage. They play on this weird psychological sense of familiarity, evoking this really eerie feeling of having been there before. It's like a giant puzzle your brain can't quite solve. Actually, it's an aesthetic that master filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick used in The Shining and David Lynch uses to build this pervasive atmosphere of unease. The Backrooms takes that and strips away everything else, leaving you with just that very specific feeling of existential dread. This specific aesthetic absolutely struck a massive, undeniable cultural nerve. We're not just talking about a few horror fans on Reddit here. The concept of liminal spaces exploded into a bona fide visual culture online. The hashtag liminal spaces amassed nearly 100 million views on TikTok alone. People started actively hunting for places that felt oddly familiar and slightly uneasy, which pretty much proves that this specific type of subtle wrongness is universally fascinating to us. Which leads us to the ultimate mystery. For years, as the lore grew like wildfire, the millions of fans exploring this fictional universe had one burning question. Where is this terrifying yellow-tinged windowless room actually located in the real world? Like, someone had to have taken a photo of it, right? But for over a decade after the photo first circulated, literally nobody knew. It was a complete mystery. The contrast here is just wild. On one hand, you have the internet's version, an infinite, multi-dimensional maze of psychological terror where reality just fundamentally breaks down. But on the other hand, you have the actual, mundane reality, a water-damaged former furniture store turning into a Hobbytown, USA in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Yep, you heard that right. The most terrifying room on the internet was actually just a commercial renovation in the American Midwest. The way it was finally discovered is a total testament to the power of internet sleuths. In May 2024, a super dedicated Discord community finally cracked the case. Using the Wayback Machine, they managed to trace the original image back to a March 2003 weblog, documenting the renovation of that Oshkosh hobby town. The photo was originally taken on a Sony CyberShot camera back in June 2002. It was titled simply DSC00161.jpg, with a caption calling it the East Oval Room. The walls were partitioned off because of extensive water damage, giving it that incredibly bizarre windowless layout. And the wildest part of the whole shebang? The room doesn't even exist anymore. It was completely converted into an indoor radio-controlled car racing track. No way! Section 2. The Digital Campfire Collaborative Modern Folklore. Now that we know the incredibly mundane truth, let's look at how the internet transformed it. We really need to frame this entire phenomenon not just as a creepy story, but as the modern equivalent of passing a ghost story around a digital campfire. Unlike traditional movies or books where one author writes the plot, the Backrooms was built by thousands of anonymous voices. Every new listener adds their own terrifying details. Mapping out this 24-year journey is absolutely fascinating. In 2002, an innocent photo is taken in Wisconsin. 17 years later, in 2019, that fateful 4chan post sparks the lore. Fast forward to 2022, and a 16-year-old kid named Kane Parsons creates a found-footage YouTube video using Blender and Adobe After Effects in just a single month, exploding the mythology into the mainstream. Then, in 2024, internet detectives finally find the real-life Wisconsin origin. And capping it all off, in May 2026, Parsons, now 21, releases an incredibly successful feature film with A24. It's a timeline that perfectly illustrates how internet culture breathes wild new life into forgotten media. But, as with any massive campfire story, disagreements definitely arose. The collaborative lore got so incredibly expansive that a literal fandom split occurred over on Reddit. On one side, you had r/Backrooms. Here, creators were constantly inventing endless new levels, things like abandoned parking garages and maintenance tunnels, all populated by these super complex monsters and entities. But on the other side, a user created r/True Backrooms. This was a community specifically for purists who much preferred the subtle, psychological dread of the original empty room isolation. They argued that adding monsters kind of ruined the eerie subtlety of simply being alone in an endless, meaningless space. So the crucial takeaway here is that this digital campfire sparked a massive cultural footprint that touched almost every single corner of pop culture. Kane Parsons didn't just stop at one video. He made a 24-episode web series that racked up over 197 million views. Dan Erickson, the creator of Apple TV's hit show Severance, directly cited the Backrooms as an influence for the show's deeply unsettling corporate mazes. The Halloween event for American Horror Stories even featured a whole episode starring Michael Imperioli trapped in the Backrooms. It spawned super popular indie co-op survival games like Escape the Backrooms and even generated entirely new internet aesthetics, like the Pool Rooms, which is this endless labyrinth of pristine, white-tiled indoor swimming pools. The cultural ripple effect is truly, truly staggering. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. The Backrooms proved that the most horrifying, expansive, and culturally significant monsters of our modern age don't come from ancient mythology. They come from the forgotten, water-damaged corners of our digital archives. The surreal power of collaborative internet culture means that a completely innocuous photo of a Midwestern hobby shop renovation can literally become a $330 million Hollywood blockbuster. So take a scroll through your phone. Look at those blurry, badly lit photos of empty hallways or random rooms you just forgot to delete. What mundane photo on your camera roll right now could become tomorrow's greatest myth? Thank you for exploring the Backrooms with me today. Keep your eyes peeled, and whatever you do, try not to no-clip out of reality.